very welcome everybody to join us in this session where we're talking about sourcing modernization and return on investment from sourcing modernization as well. I'm delighted to introduce our customer, the Grupo Nutresa, who are wonderful exponents at best practice in sourcing. So they've really mastered the art of sourcing excellence, and they'll be going through their journey on the progression through the maturity levels in their sourcing after working with us for several years on this. So Carlos Peña and Maria Fernandez Velasquez joining us from Colombia today will be stepping through their journey, and we'll learn, I suppose, the lessons in the years of investing in best practice and sourcing. So first of all, I'm just going to introduce Keelvar very briefly. So we've been a technology partner for Grupo Nutresa for a few years, and we've worked with them on several initiatives over those years. And we specialize in advanced sourcing software. So I'm Alan Holland, the founder and CEO of Keelvar, and Keelvar emerged from a university research lab where we developed a sourcing optimization. So our first product was an advanced sourcing tool that allowed organizations to run big and small sourcing projects that might have some degrees of complexity involved. And key to sourcing excellence is to capture expressive information and rich information about what your suppliers can do for you, what way they'd like to piece together business and make offerings to you that allow them to play to their strengths and avoid weaknesses. So we've complemented our sourcing optimizer with automation. So we believe that the way to scale sourcing excellence is to automate best practice, and so that your tactical buying complements your strategic sourcing activities that you're not intending to automate. So to do that, we've been building sourcing bots and digital rate card functionality so you can store rates as well. So the key benefits of best practice in sourcing, there's a few obvious ones, including cost savings. Some significant cost savings when you apply best practice in your negotiations with suppliers. And return on investment is extremely strong. So it's typically over 100% in the first bid event of significant scale that's executed using sourcing optimization. But also in productivity, time savings are significant, and you can have your time in executing projects from beginning to end. And with automation now, we're seeing optimization was typically in the past applied to just a few large projects, but now you can start to automate best practice and include optimization in smaller scale events that are operated at high frequency. And it's for supply chain and indirect spend categories ranging from transportation to direct materials, indirect materials, packaging. And we're serving many of the world's top brands. So, everybody from Carlsberg to Coca-Cola and Samsung, Microsoft, Novartis, Daimler and others are using Keelvar in their sourcing. But one of the best companies at applying sourcing optimization is a Colombian firm, Grupo Nutresa, who really understand what best practice looks like. They've invested in training their team, in bringing them to a standard that is the envy of most organizations, and we would put them on a pedestal to say that they really appreciate the value of best practice, and they're invested in applying best of breed techniques. And we're delighted to have them with us today, and I'll invite Maria first of all to share with us their journey and what they've been through.
Hi everyone. Thank you. As Alan said, my name is Maria Fernanda. I'm so glad and happy to be here. Thank you, Kilbara and DPW, for the invitation. Today, we want to share you first a little bit about Grupo Nutresa, that go briefly about our procurement organization and our procurement process, and then tell you about our success with digital procurement tools. So first, Grupo Nutresa is a 100-year-old food company based in Medellin, Colombia. We have 8 different business units of food, for cocoa, chocolate, coffee, and other. We have 4 sales distribution network that sells $3 billion per year, and 47 production plants in America, but we can cover all the country with the distribution. For us, it's really important the sustainability. So we have been recognized as the most sustainability food company in the world for Dow Jones Sustainability Index. And Carlos and I works in Servicios Nutresa, that is the church service for this group, and have different solutions like procurement. So we want to talk a little bit our procurement organization. We have more than 12 suppliers working per year, 6 procurement offices, and 80 people working in our headquarters in Colombia. Carlos and I work in the digital procurement team, and we support the buyers and negotiators in digital tools as sourcing. Sourcing, as Alan said, is a really important tool for us. So we have been doing more than 100 events per year. And now that you know a little bit more about us, we want to share with you our roadmap. What is Grupo Nutresa procurement process? So we can say that everything started in 2012, in 2012, with our strategic sourcing methodology that we made with McKinsey. We start creating, for example, the global sourcing strategy. For that, we have an office in Shanghai, but also with McKinsey, we start to use sourcing tools for strategic categories like packaging. So for the other negotiation and categories, we are still using the Office Suite Excel for the most important tool. But in 2016, we start to listen about procurement 4.0 and start to look for tools that can impact the savings and can help to, as Alan said, have that ROI and confirm that can we use these tools. So we start to is designing a metrics to understand which kind of tools can be negotiated through sourcing optimizers based on the complexity, the spend, the allocation, and SKUs, number of suppliers. So we design everything and help the negotiator to use these kind of tools. And we're going to let you know further more information about our success using this kind of tool. We also understand that it's really important to have the design clear of the negotiation because it will be easier for the feedback for the suppliers and also the scenarios to make the decision. Then in 2018, we continue talking about digital procurement. So in this time, we start to talk with SIP, with Arriba Solutions, and start to design a business case. It's important to have a payback when you have to invest in a software in the cloud. In this case, for procurement team was important. So we start to make that business case to acquire this Arriba suite, but we focus in non-direct category because it's the categories that we find that we can find more savings because they have a little bit more leakage. So with Arriba, we create like 3 phases, but the first one was focus in cost reduction, prevent value leakage, and process efficiency. So we start to talk with them and continue this roadmap for digital procurement, introducing new tools more than sourcing that we have before with Kilbara. So now Carlos going to tell you a little bit more about that implementation of that digital procurement roadmap.
Thanks, Mafe and Alan and everyone. So glad to be here. Well, continuing the roadmap that we have set as for our procurement organization, and as Mafe just mentioned, we have made a business case, and we have to think about the spend categories that we want to involve in this process. So when thinking about the digital procurement roadmap, we have to choose from that three-phase project the kind of modules that were the most important for us at the time, so we can prioritize them. So we start talking with SAP Ariba about since the very beginning of the process of creating a supplier. So we start talking on SLP, which is a supplier lifecycle and performance. We talked about sourcing, as this is the most important thing to get the savings that we had promised in the business case. The payback for the project was set for 2.5 years, and I think we're making this payback a reality by the end of the year. So we are going to be ahead of that time, like in 6 months or something like that. We also started to talk about contracts, not at the same time. It was just the very beginning of the project. We use commerce automation as well, and we are implementing right now the guided buying solution. By the time we start to do the business case, we had been working with Kilbara since the very beginning. So for us, it was very important right now to be able to integrate Kilbara with SAP Ariba, which is something that is online from the last 2 years, and we are using it in the last 6 months in our company. We do have, or we do envision kind of an end-to-end solution, as since the beginning we started working with SAP Ariba, we knew that we were not able to implement all the tools, as it would be such a great project, and it would be such a great demand on the teams, not only the procurement teams, but the IT teams as well. So we focus, as Mafe mentioned, on value leakage, on savings, and of course, process efficiency. As of today, we are just focusing right now in a couple of things. The first one is to guarantee the adoption of the e-sourcing tools. Keelvar is one of those tools, and we are focusing, as I mentioned, on integrating Ariba sourcing with Keelvar, so the negotiator can choose if any given category has such a complexity that he requires an optimizer, he can choose to use Keelvar, or if it's something pretty simple, he can use sourcing on SAP Ariba. So Mafe just talked about the matrix that we made, and this matrix was actually built since the beginning. We start talking about sourcing optimization. Alan also mentioned a lot of categories where we can use an optimizer, and I will say this is like the very first step you need to talk about if you are thinking about sourcing optimization. You need to understand what kind of competition you have, the number of suppliers that you have in any given category, and you need to understand complexity. So the factors that actually drive complexity are, from our point of view, are the number of SKUs, the number of plans that you have, and how do you want to allocate this business once you have optimized the scenarios. So this matrix is kind of something pretty simple that we've built, and actually we have some refinement from Keelvar and a couple of meetings we had with Alan, and right now I think it's the tool that we use when someone in the procurement team want to use the optimizer. Right now, I'm going to share with you the categories where we have the most success using the optimizer. So the first category we have used with Kilbara was packaging. Is being a food company is one of the largest spends we have. It's a very complex category because we have more than 40 factories spread, especially in Latin America, to Texas in the US. And we have a lot of factories that actually can use the same kind of plastic packaging material. So we can invite in the same process. Actually, we are running right now the most important bidding process. So we are optimizing it using Kilbara right now. And we have a lot of suppliers, a lot of factories, and more than 1,000 references or SKUs. The savings we got in the first time with something around 20 to 25%, and we are still getting like 6 or 7 years since the first event was held. We are still getting like 10 to 15% every 2 to 3 years. The second category we use was MRO. We use it for a lot of small things where we have a lot of references and, of course, a lot of factories and allocations. We use traffic lights, we use multi-round scenarios, and at the end of the process, we can ask the optimizer to run like a cherry picking scenario or something like that, from the simple one to the most complex one. We have used Kilbara as well on marketing services, from creative agencies, digital agencies, and with events with more than 100 suppliers on it. It was very useful to consolidate information, as this is a service category, which is very different from MRO packaging. And finally, we are using Keelvar right now, and the optimizer for logistics and ocean transportation. We are actually thinking to start to implement a bot that can actually do the mini tenders that we are running up right now, with the international situation that everyone is facing with containers and everything in the world. This is going to be so useful for the teams, and we're very happy to work with the bot in Kilbara. Finally, we are looking ahead what is actually just in front of us. We will keep working on sourcing automation from the bot from Keelvar Ocean, Logistics Team, and Grupo Nutresa. We have to focus, Maria Fernanda and myself, and the whole procurement organization is thinking on how to drive adoption, not only on Keelvar, but of course in Ariba and any digital solution that we have prepared for procurement. We would like to increase the number of catalogs and spend that actually we buy through catalogs functionality. We, of course, want to improve control and compliance and everything that is related with value leakage and issues in different categories, especially the one on services. And we want to build a healthy procurement organization from a metrics and KPI point of view. We are implementing right now 10 global KPIs, and we are preparing ourselves to benchmark this organization like every semester with best practices and other organizations that we compare ourselves to. Thanks a lot. Alan, I think is back to you.
Thank you very much, Carlos and Maria Fernanda. That's extremely, I think, helpful for the audience to understand that the journey to a mature sourcing function can take different paths, and some organizations start with a suite and complement it with optimization. I think in Nutresa's case, it's actually been helpful and to start with an optimizer, and it allowed Nutresa very creative in its application of best practice, and in many ways we see Nutresa's usage of sourcing optimization as a good example to some potentially much larger organizations who used sourcing optimization but complemented a pre-existing suite, because you can actually be hamstrung if you start with a suite and you apply ordinary sourcing tools to a range of commodities initially, that there's an assumption that it works. Why change? But Carlos, I'd be interested just maybe to get your thoughts on that, and actually in terms of starting with an optimizer and then bringing in a suite. Do you think that was advantageous from your perspective?
Sure. We use Kilbara as an option for the first packaging categories, and we were not kind of use it as a mandatory tool for the negotiators and for the teams. So I will say that the promise of savings since the beginning was very important for us to gain adoption, and that promise was very well fulfilled since the first event. Once we get the savings on the first event, and of course the timeline was reduce, I will say, from 6 months to 3 months to analyze the information. It was like everyone was interested in using tool. So we did not have to think on something mandatory. We just kept receiving questions and requests from the people to use Keelvar in different kind of categories. I will say that was the most complex things on the beginning, because we did not have the matrix that we showed a couple of minutes ago from the beginning, and it was kind of the best tool that we can share right now with the team, so they can understand if any given category is actually suited for using in an optimizer, because not the 100% of the categories you can use it on Kilbara.
Yeah. Yeah, very good. Thank you very much, Carlos and Maria Fernanda. I think we'll just be moving to wrap up, and we have just a couple of slides now. I think we're inviting questions, and if there's anybody who does have any questions, we're happy to take those now.
Sure. I do see some questions on the Q&A section from
Yes.
Ulrich.
Hi, it's Jennifer. Yeah, there's a question about, in addition to using the support from Keelvar, what were other success factors and other things that you needed to do internally, I think at Carlos and Mafe? What did you do internally to achieve those savings and drive that adoption?
Mafe, do you want to talk about that question? I can take the second one.
Yes, we were like a lot with the negotiators. It was really important to use, and as the beginning of our process, as we say, with the consultant of McKinsey, the savings are the center. So always the negotiator have to achieve that goal for saving per year. So what we do is to move all of this negotiation for another kinds of negotiations. It means like actions, RFQ with complex categories. So we need that all the negotiators and that change management going to be really close, and the CPO have to line all the people to use the tool to achieve that. It means that like if you use digital tools, you may find more savings, not because the market, is because you can be more efficiency, you can use many rounds, and also you can negotiate more categories per year, so you can find more go abroad your categories. So I think it's important the change management, and of course that you have an organization really close for savings, to achieve that savings.
Thank you, Mafe. We don't have any more questions right now, but I do have a question for the two of you. Sustainability is such a big focus for Grupo Nutresa. How do you see that working with your e-sourcing process?
Good. As I said at the beginning, we work every year to be the most sustainability food company in the world. So it's important. We have been working a lot with packaging, because maybe you know that we are facing in a lot of countries some regulation about that. So we have been working to the circle reduction, looking for changing the materials to new option with the main suppliers. And we are working really close with the suppliers to make this works and to have that results for the company that are really important for us. Actually, we have an entire organization for sustainability that is also set in Servicios Nutresa, that is the church service that we works.
Yes, I will also add, Jennifer, that even though we're using Keelvar as our main optimizer, when you profile suppliers, you have to compare in the end, because when you take the offers and the numbers from the bid through the optimizer, you I mean, you're supposed to do kind of a gating process since the beginning in the tool. So you can start with an RFI and you can be opening little doors one at a time. So the suppliers are able to show us important information that you have to balance in the end. So even though you can have a very competitive price, you have to compare with the profile that the company have already made from the suppliers. So of course, we have a lot of very competitive offers from suppliers all around the world. I remember the first time we had offers from South Korea and a lot of European suppliers, and even suppliers located in kind of low-cost countries from a global perspective. And even even though they were competitive, they were not up to the standard of suppliers that we were looking for. So I think, and I will say, profiling suppliers is a very important part of the process. Not only the one you get out of the optimizer. Of course, optimizer is just thinking during the process about how to look for the most competitive prices. And that's when scenarios and multi-round events and traffic lights are so useful in a platform like Kilbar.
Okay, thank you. We can wrap up now, I think. Thank you both.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think that's been excellent and a very good overview of a journey of sourcing modernization. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye all.
Thanks to you, Jennifer, Alan.
Bye.
Bye-bye.